Milestones Local School Workshop. I sent this PowerPoint to everyone in the Little Red Schoolhouse, I still call it that, before we even left for the break. So if you feel the need to look through it again at your leisure, do that. You also have a copy of the test examiner's manual, scientific sheets that students are able to use. You have copies of several different things, so when you have a chance, look through those things. So today we're going to do an overview of the milestones. We're going to talk about online administration, some new field test item types, testing accommodations, test security and irregularities, what to do before, during, and after testing, as well as important dates, resources, and contact information. So whatever materials, since we're completely online, whatever materials that are going to be delivered, things like a hard copy of the test examiner's manual, that's about it actually. The stop sign that tells me what to bring to our check-in service, all of those things will be sent to us on the week of the 8th. I don't believe we've received anything yet, but on the week, when we receive it, you'll see that form go on the outside of my door where you have to sign in order to come into my office because it's so secure. And I am to return whatever non-scorable and scorable materials, but there won't be any scorable because we're not doing paper pencil, but scratch sheets, things like that, will be returned on May 3rd. This is what the test examiner's manual looks like. This time, it's just all in one. So it is the test administrator's manual, the system coordinator's manual, the test coordinator's manual, all wrapped up in one. You and I have the same manual this time, so you can see everything that needs to be done. And this is our testing window. So on Tuesday, April 16th, we will give section 1 of ELA, Wednesday, section 2, Thursday, 3. Friday, April 19th is makeup day. And I've already been approached by a few students to say that it's Passover and we have a few students who will not be here. But I kindly reminded them that Passover begins the evening of the 19th. So if we have some students who are not showing up and they tell you that's why, just let me know so that I'm prepared. On the 22nd, we'll take section 1 of math. Section 2 of math is the 23rd. Then we have another makeup day on the 24th. We've only been allotted 2 full days for makeups. So we have one student that's already going to be absent for like all of ELA and all of math. Is there anyone that's come back with any sprains or broken limbs or anything like that yet? Okay, so that person would probably have to do a makeup, but I only have 2 makeups, so we're going to encourage students to come every single solitary day. Otherwise, the afternoons of testing days will be used for makeups as well. So then we get into 5th grade tests. On Thursday the 25th, they will take section 1 of science, 26th, section 2, 29th will be section 1 of social studies, and on the 30th, section 2 of social studies. Wednesday, May 1st is a non-testing day. So if we have students who have been absent, they're absent on the days that I've done makeups and things like that, I cannot test them on May 1st at all. So just in case parents contact you, you'll have some information to give them. All right, the Milestones end of grade assessment test grades 3 through 8 on English language arts, math, and grades 5 and 8 test on science and social studies. are the times, and we, if you don't know, every student must be given the minimum amount of time per section in order to take the test. So I know we have some Speedy Gonzalez in our midst, and they're really finished early. However, they can't take out books to read and all of those things until after the minimum amount of time has passed. If you have all of your classes finished by 70 minutes, then I think what we've done in the past is students are able to take out books on days that are not English language arts days. But the main thing I want you to take away from this is that we have to give them the minimum amount of time. And so for our English language arts section 1, that's 70 minutes. For 2 and 3, that's 60 minutes. For math 1 and 2, that's 60. Science and social studies, 45 minutes each. We do have one student so far that will be given additional time, and that's for English language arts and not for any other subject. And so the minimum amount of time for whoever is the person in charge of that accommodation will have to be given for that student as well. So the ELG must be given in this order. And this is just for your knowledge as well, because a couple of parents have asked if we can rearrange some things to help their schedule out, take a test on different days and things like that. So that is not something that's part of our purview. We cannot do that. The ELG must be given in the following order: ELA, math, science, and social studies. And further, somewhere along, I guess we'll get to it maybe in a couple other slides, subject areas must be given within the same week. The only exception would be ELA, but all the other subject areas must be given within the same week as well. So our section 1 ELA must be exclusively given on a day separate from 2 and 3. And sections 1 and 2 of other content areas have to be scheduled in a way that it will be completed over the course of 2 consecutive days, and that's the way the district has already set it up. The district has set up the testing window, and that's the window that we must use. Oh, here it is. Administrations for the end of grade level content must be completed within the same week, okay? These are some things for us to consider during scheduling. The testing times prescribed in the examiner's manual, that we give the full amount of time, minimum and maximum for each testing section and subject. That additional time is required for handing out materials. If you notice, we've already incorporated that time for you to distribute materials. Section may not be stopped until the minimum allotment of time has expired, and students should use their additional time to check over their answers. So Matt has a really good idea, and what he'd like to do, and why are you looking like that? What he'd like to do is to put some reminders on our teleprompter out there for students, things like make sure you check over your work once you finish, things like that will not violate anything. So that's just something that they'll be able to see and to be reminded of on a daily basis. If students are productively engaged with the test content, I know we like to really, really adhere to schedules, but if they are productively engaged, you have to let them finish their test. So the maximum amount of time per section may be given in increments, and I believe the increments are 10-minute increments, okay? Allowing too much time or too little time may result in a test invalidation.
Ms. King?
Yes.
How do we tell students that? Every year I get a question, I say, well, it's 60, but then, what do you want us to say at the beginning when they say, how much time do we have?
I don't know about the beginning, but I believe there's a section in the manual that explains it.
Say it like that?
Yeah,
the
way that
for it
it's
every
just
year.
in
I never know quite what to say.
in increments of 10 minutes. That's all. So if they finished at 60, but they only need 3 minutes, We still have, you give them an increment of 10 minutes. There's no really good way to explain it to them.
I just read what's in the manual.
Right, exactly. Read what's in the manual.
Jill, I always put the end time, the minimum end time, and the maximum end time.
Do you put the maximum? I just don't, I want to do the right thing, so they know.
And then the minimum end time, because then they know you have to be testing that whole minimum time, and you're not gonna be able
That's a
to
good
do
idea.
anything else. And then the maximum time, so yeah, the ones who.
And that may be something that we want to do as a school, is just to write the minimum, the time on the board. This is the minimum, this is the maximum time. Just so in case anyone can benefit from that. Thank you, Lindsay. The EOG, the purpose of the end of grade assessment is to provide a valid measure of student achievement of the state content standards across full achievement continuum, to provide a clear signal of each student's preparedness for the next grade level, to allow for the direction of the academic progress made by each student from one assessed grade to the next, and it's suitable for use in promotion and retention decisions at grades 3 for reading, 5 for reading and math, and 8 for reading and math. It also supports and informs the educator effectiveness measures, and it informs state and federal accountability measures at the school district and state levels. Students that are to take the EOG include grades 3 through 8, except those participating in GAA, and we don't have any of those students. Makeup tests will be given within the schedule that the district provided for us, as well as on those testing days that I've already told you about. And retest, and we may want to pay attention just a little bit to the whole retest thing, because it's a little different this year. But students who are not on grade level reading for grades 3, 5, and 8 will retest. Students who score in the beginning learner achievement level in math in grades 5 and 8 will retest. And we have dates for the retest, and we don't want you to panic, but we're just going to give out this information, and we're just going to take it in just like we take in all the rest of this information. Okay? These should all be hidden, so I'm not sure did it undo that when I put it in here. Alright, so our scoring and reporting timelines. Our end of grade assessment for grades 3, 5, and 8 from the day of submission will take 11 business days to receive our scores. And sometimes they come way before that. I know Laura starts checking, and sometimes they just start populating before the 11 days. For our end of grade for grades 4, 6, and 7, they will begin to populate 16 business days after this online submission. And for science and social studies, that's 5 business days after students submit their tests. So here are the retest guidelines that are a little different. So students' performance on the reading portion of ELA tests will be used to provide a grade level reading determination, below grade level or on or above. Students who receive reading and vocabulary domain designations of below grade level need remediation and are to retest in ELA. Students who retest will take the ELA sections test sections 2 and 3. And they'll do that in a 1-day session. Math remains a 1-day session as well. However, retakes for reading this year will be during the last week of school, May 20th and May 21st. Okay? We're just taking in information. All right, and retest guidelines for our math. Students must achieve the developing learner achievement level to be considered eligible for promotion. These students have demonstrated partial proficiency of the grade level concepts and skills and can proceed to the next grade level when provided focused instructional support in the needed areas. Students who achieve the beginning learner require remediation and the opportunity to retest. These students need substantial academic support. Retakes for math will be completed also during the last week of school on May 22nd and May 23rd. As you can see, our local school training changed this year as well, and it is on a Tuesday, April 9th. This is the day that everyone in the district are delivering the local school training. Administration considerations. So we're talking about scratch paper. Scratch paper is considered secured materials. So in English language arts, students are allowed scratch paper in all sections. Section 1, they will begin with 2 sheets. When we speak of 2 sheets, the very first sheet could be their test ticket. If you just flip it over, or even if they just use the space underneath it, their test ticket can be used as scratch paper. Sections 2 and 3, they start with 1 sheet, and again, that could just be their scratch paper. I will provide additional scratch paper in everyone's folder anyway. For math, they're allowed to start with 2 sheets. No graph paper, just the blank paper that I provide for you. Science, they're allowed 1 sheet in both sections. And social studies, 1 sheet in both sections. Students, of course, can request, yes?
When you say they're allowed, does that mean we're all giving them 2 sheets? We're all giving them 1 sheet?
Yeah,
Or we just ask them?
they're allowed the scratch paper. They don't have to use it. The test directions will tell you to pass out the scratch paper, correct? Yeah. So it's just a matter of semantics. Most students don't use it though. Scratch paper is considered secure once used. So even when they just put their name on it, it's automatically secured and I have to turn it in. And again, their test tickets can be the first. Oh, this got all out of order as soon as I use this. So I'll just tell you about this. This is the calculus. Students who are allowed to use calculators as part of their accommodations, as well as our 6th grade students, are only allowed to use what is called a basic calculator. And so I found a picture so that we don't get confused about the difference between the basic and the scientific calculator. The basic one is exactly what you see here. The numbers, the basic functions, and that's it. So this year, and I've talked to Ms. Floyd and Ms. Hughes, students have been practicing using the online calculator. So we don't have to worry about passing out calculators to students, so you don't have to try to figure out if it's a basic or not. They've already practiced using it. Calculators are not allowed in grades 3 through 5. In grade 6, again, it's just a basic calculator. And they will use that on section 1, part A of their math test. That way you don't have to have them raise their hand if they need calculators or any of those things, because it'll just show up, they'll use it, what's on the screen. So we are testing 100% online, and that is the goal of the entire district. We do have a couple of schools who have exceptions, but for the most part, everyone is testing online. And there are some advantages to that. Rapid return of scoring, the ease of setup and administration, and the additional universal tools for all students. Standardized accessibility tools for accommodated students, all benefits of testing online. An improved student experience, reduced irregular test administration, and a reduced stress on the district, school, and teachers, as well as improved test security.
No heavy tubs.
It also matches the Georgia Standards of Excellence for the use of technology in writing. For example, with guidance and support from adults, students will use technology to produce and publish writings. Students also reflects technology use found in college and career, and that is what we're preparing students for. All these are advantages of the online testing. I was just taking so long. These blank spaces is where I've hidden these slides so we can cut it down a little, and they're still showing up. All right, so we do have a few students who have accommodations, and those accommodations will be given in small group settings. And those people who have to do the small groups, we will meet really, really briefly, and I'll send you the PowerPoint for that so that you can just kind of prepare yourself for how to give that. All right. Accommodations in the online testing environment include small group or individual or study carrel tests, large print, use of highlighter, audio amplification devices, technology applications such as Braille, student marks and test books. So we don't have any students this year that mark in test books. Everyone is just going to do their whole online thing, okay? As well as extended time. The computer does not keep track of extended time. Hopefully in the future it will, but whoever the testing examiner is will have to keep track of how much extended time students have are to be given. Security and irregularities. Maintaining test security and test integrity is critical. All examiners who administer a state assessment must hold a valid Georgia PSC issued certificate. So everyone in here certified too. Attendance at training is mandatory and will be well documented. Everyone has signed in, and you will sign out when we leave. And untrained examiners must not be allowed to test. Students and teachers need to understand test protocols and the ramifications of not following test procedures. The school principal must be made aware of any issues involving testing or test security, and violations may result in invalidation of student tests and a referral to the PSC for disciplinary action. Again, documentation of attendance at the building level. Ensure that examiners have an opportunity to review the examiner manual prior to testing date, and I have emailed that to you. You should also be clear on logistical procedures in place for the security of materials. You did your sign in, and we will sign out at the end. There are no test booklets. Online test tickets must be kept and stored in a secure place. So I will start printing those out early, and I will keep them in my locked testing closet. And so if you come into my office, which now becomes a secure testing environment, you can go ahead and sign in, if you need something from me. Test materials must not be removed from their secure storage location for reasons other than the preparation of materials for testing. We must distribute test materials as close to the actual testing time as possible. And so if you notice in the packet, it tells you that you can start, I believe, getting your test at 7:20, is that what I said? So that gives you time to go to the restroom, get students in the restroom and things like that. And we're gonna go ahead and get started at 8. Because we really don't have to use these huge bins and things anymore, we can go ahead and check out in my office. We don't have to check out of the cafeteria. Testing materials should only be issued to persons who have been carefully advised of their responsibilities, and only staff members who have been trained should handle the materials. All persons receiving testing materials must sign a checkout sheet, and we will have the materials checkout sheet on the very first day of testing. All you have to do is fill it out with your name. You count the materials when you're taking them out. You count the test tickets, your examiner's manual, and your your do not disturb sign. And you just jot down how many that you have. Then when you come back, myself and Mr. Osborne and whoever else is coming to help will count them back in for you. Those numbers should match. All testing materials issued to persons administering tests must be counted carefully when given out and returned. Test coordinators and examiners should keep a record of all students tested for each administration. I believe I sent you a copy of the student log as well, so that you can go ahead and start filling that out for the person who will be testing for you. If you would just print that out or type it, whatever, and list all of the students that are in your homeroom so that they know who to look for when they come and switch classes with you. Right, please follow the instructions in the test manual exactly. Do not add anything or delete anything. The directions in the from the directions in the test manual. This violates standardized test conditions and may invalidate scores. All testing materials must be collected and returned immediately after the testing session. Please be reminded that test tickets and used scratch paper are considered secure materials and must be handled as such. Examiners are responsible for turning test tickets, used scratch paper in, and the coordinators are responsible for verifying that you have. This is what the student sign-in sheet looks like. So again, if we can go ahead and have this prepared, it'll kind of cut down on the amount of time that we have to take on that the very first day. Each classroom will have this roster completed. And like I said, you have a copy of that, and then I've already made copies as well. Cell phones and electronic devices. Students are not permitted to use or bring into the testing environment any electronic device that could allow them to access, retain, or transmit information. So that's all of those smart watches, cell phones, smartphones, recording devices, all of those things. Because they will always ask you, because, just seems like they're smarter than us when they come in and they're like, oh, I have a smartwatch, and, but if they could just put that in their bag, that'll be great. I think we have a couple of students who have that as an accommodation, and so, of course, they get to keep that with them, but the other students, unless it's something that is part of their accommodation, if they could please, just for that one day, during that little limited amount of time, if they can put it in their book bag, that would be great. Announcements must be made prior to testing that such devices are not allowed in the testing environment, and that possession or improper use of such devices during testing may result in disciplinary action. A script has been added to the examiner's manual regarding this topic. This script, as with all scripts, must be read to students. In the event that an examiner confirms during testing that a student is using a device to access, retain, or share information, the examiner must with minimal disruption. All right, so we are not trying to confirm anything. If you see the device out, you ask the student to give it to you, you log it in on your cell phone log, and that's what we will do. The student continues to test. We will determine afterward if a student was trying to use this to access information and things like that. We are not allowed to keep anyone from testing because we have a suspicion that they were using a device to aid them. We will make that determination after, but if you take the test from them and you find out that you were not right, you can't give them back that time. So it's best to err on the side of caution, okay? You collect the device, do not stop testing that student. We were told not to stop testing that student. Remove the student from the testing session. We're gonna leave the student in the testing session. I'm not sure why this is here because we were told the complete opposite of all of that, which is to leave the student in the testing session, do not stop them from testing. We will figure out, yes.
It looks like the blue bar
Yeah.
has what you're talking about.
Okay.
This is
Okay.
tradition. Don't do
Got
that.
me nervous. Okay,
And I
yeah,
think
so
the only
don't
way-
do any of that.
The only way you
Even
Right,
so,
you're going, Siri, what is 7 plus 5?
I wouldn't even take that chance
Is
if
that
I
what
were
they
you.
said? They only went over the blue bar in your thing.
So listen, in the event that actions are suspected but not confirmed, the examiner with minimal disruption will collect the device, allow the student to complete testing. That is what we were told, to err on the side of caution, allow the students to complete testing. And afterward, if we have to go and we have to investigate or any of that, we can always invalidate a test. But once you take that stuff from them and you find out you're wrong, there's nothing you can do about it. Okay? Notify the school testing coordinator immediately, and as soon as it is appropriate, attempt to confirm whether or not the device has been used in violation of the guidelines above. And then Laura and I will go through the steps that we need to contact the district. Simple possession of a device, including the ringing of a phone during test administration, may be addressed in keeping with the system's code of conduct and does not require an irregularity report to the Georgia DOE. That's what it is. All right, so here's your cell phone policy log. If you have the student hasn't put it away, you're going to take it and log it in here. General restroom break guidance. All right, so for the dignity and safety of students, we do not tell them that they cannot use the restroom during testing. If it's an emergency, we don't determine if it's an emergency or not. We give them the opportunity to use the restroom. Students may take stretch breaks during sessions, but as a rule, a student who leaves the room during section 1 may not complete section 1. They may resume testing in section 2 once it starts. An exception to that rule is relative to a restroom emergency, and it's explained in the restroom break guidance document, and that document will be in everyone's folder. Again, student leaves the restroom, you just document what time they left, when they come back, and then if they need that time on the back end, we give them those 1 or 2 minutes that they need. And that brings us to the whole, if students are ill, if they come into your room and it's clear that they are not feeling well, do not let them even get started with testing, because if they get testing in the middle, we know that they won't be allowed to finish that section. Okay? It's easier to give them a makeup than to try to work with someone to allow them to be able to finish the section. An irregularity, events and circumstances, or departures from standardized testing procedures are irregularities. They may have an impact on student performance that is not possible to define. So they are reported and the student scores are flagged simply to say there is something different about the conditions under which this score was obtained. Use caution in interpreting this score. That's what the definition of an irregularity is. An invalidation, on the other hand, are irregularities that are so serious that they result in the invalidation of a student's score. The content has been disclosed, student has been coached, material has been distributed beforehand, students are cheating, someone else is cheating. The test administrator is alerting responses during or after testing. Any of those things may result in invalidation. And participation invalidation. These are irregularities where, when appropriate accommodations are used, students may not be considered participants in accountability determinations. In the end of grade, a potential participation invalidation occurs when a student receives inappropriately conditional accommodations. Oral reading, reading passages, use of a calculator, all of those are considered reasons to violate because of participation. Common irregularities. How do I get that? We'll go back to that. Testing irregularities. Sickness during test administration. The student gets sick prior to starting the test. Upon returning to school, the student will complete the test in its entirety and the test is scored as is. Do not need to report to the Office of Assessment. If a student gets sick after completing section 1, but before starting section 2, The test is coded as, upon return to school, student will complete section 2 of the test, and the test is coded as an irregularity. The student gets sick while testing in either section 1 or 2. The test scores may be invalidated by the Georgia DOE and reported to the Office of Assessment. If we have students who refuse their accommodations, their test scores are coded as an irregularity, and we report that to the Office of Assessment. Avoiding testing irregularities. If you encounter connectivity issues prior to the start of the test, use the appropriate troubleshooting tools available. And I have a little packet that I've already printed up that I will make sure everyone gets of things to try before you put your help sign out, okay? If problems persist, use your best judgment as to whether or not to allow students to begin testing. During testing, if you have connectivity issues, use the appropriate troubleshooting tools available to correct the issue. If problems persist, use your best judgment as to whether or not to allow students to continue testing. So if you have issues during testing, of course you'll put your little sign out, or you'll stick your head out the door so that someone in the hall can come and let us know, and we will come and try to troubleshoot for you. One of the ways that we were told that will help with connectivity issues is to just start a few students at a time. So maybe one side of the room clicks in, then the other side of the room clicks in, as opposed to starting everyone at once, because that's what they've noticed is being able to connect has slowed down. So that's one troubleshooting method, but I have a list of others, okay? Student test tickets may be used to verify student name and GTID prior to testing. So when they look at their test ticket, they need to see their name, their GTID number is correct, then they will sign their test ticket. If you do have issues with connectivity or any of that, and I know you want to be really helpful, do not take a picture or any kind of screenshot of what you see. I know it's hard to describe sometimes, you know, they have all those crazy codes and stuff, and you just want to help and you want to keep the kids going, but just make sure that you don't do anything like that. I do have a new form, and I have a picture of it in the end, where you just write the student's first name, last 4 digits of their GTID number, and then pass that to a hall monitor, and we'll try to get them back on as quickly as possible. Adhere to test security policies, protocols, and procedures. To avoid testing irregularities, reinforce the use of active monitoring in testing environments. That means you're walking around, you're not hovering over any one student, you're looking from a seat sometimes, just to make sure that things are going well. Always start off making sure that students are in the right section, so you want to be up and moving to see that part. Students with IEP or 504 plans should be regularly reviewed to determine if accommodations are still appropriate or needed. And we were able to just kind of review some of those earlier in the year and reduce some of those students that needed accommodations. In the event of an evacuation, and we've had that happen before, or any other unexpected event, have a plan in place to quickly secure testing environments and or materials. And there is an evacuation protocol in your folder every year. If you have any kind of incident that just prompts you to think, I may want to record this so that I can explain this, or that something may happen with the student's test and I just want to be able to say that this happened, use your examiner's incident log. And that's where you'll just fill out what happened, who the student was, and any other comments that you want to make. So if you have students who are working slow, students who are falling asleep, if a student's test stops in the middle and they have to restart, just anything that may affect their score that you just want to know. And then, of course, this is an irregularity form if we have any student who has an irregularity during testing. So before testing, we're going to verify that all online test takers are in their test session. That students have the correct test ticket. And that everything is installed on their device so that they are ready for testing. During testing, examiners should check to see if students are responding in the correct spaces. For ELA, check to see if students are responding in section 1, item 5 in the correct location. Check to be sure that students have completed math section 1, parts A and B. Check the students do not have a calculator in section 1, part A. We're not worried about that, that's online. Check to see if online students click review, end, test, and submit after each section. Miss Sims does something great where she just has them to just shoot their finger up and she comes over and they have to click submit in front of her. Because we have some students who think that they've submitted the test and they really haven't. Then I have to go find them later on in the day and have them come pull it up and submit their test. So just make sure that they have reviewed, ended their test, and submitted. It was the test examiner training. Has everyone had a chance to go to that link and then follow it up by signing in and saying that you watched this thing from the district? It works in conjunction with our district training. A video and PowerPoint with the script is found on the videos page, so make sure that you do that. Preparing our students. We orient our students prior to testing and monitor carefully during the testing session online. So this is just an example of what students will see. The ELA section 1 on item 4, 2-point constructive response. The left side of the screen with the reading passage and the right side of the screen with the test items and writing tasks function independently. And so students should have some sort of practice with that. Students can refer to either passage or writing tasks while typing a response. And at the back of your packet, I have these shortcut keys for students, and you can write that on the board if you like. All right, so here they're turning the pages on they can either click on the left or the right side of the reading passage. At the top, the extended writing task is displayed on the right side of the screen. They can click to enlarge the writer's checklist to use, and then at the top of the response field, it displays at the bottom of the screen. For math, the examiner's manual will identify the item numbers that comprise section 1, part A. The section is preceded by instructions indicating that calculator use is not allowed in this section. At the end of the section, the student will be stopped before proceeding to the calculator use section. And so it asks them if they're ready to move on, and this is where they get to continue, and they will not have a calculator. For grades 6 through 8, this is the part where they will have a calculator in part B, and it alerts them to that. All right, to correctly close out of the section, the student should end the test, and then to correctly submit the section that they've completed, they're going to click submit, that black button. In order for student responses to be calculated, all sections of the test must be completed in completed status. And using the student status option, I can check, and I will be checking while we're testing to see if there's anyone that's still in process. Sections believed to be complete but not complete status should be logged into by the student and under the supervision. set to complete status, and then use in test and submit buttons. So we don't want to have to do that, just kind of monitor that they submitted. Oh, sorry. There are multiple part answers. I thought that was for paper and pencil. For students, there be some questions where they have to choose multiple answers in order to complete that response. This is an example of an evidence-based selected response. It says which two details from the passage support the answer in part one. Choose two answers. So multiple select items in ELA and math. There are also field test items in science and social studies. It just allows for more than one correct answer. There are usually 5 or 6 options listed. There are 2 points for all correct, 1 point for a specific combination. It provides students with the opportunity to show fluency and or multiple representations. This is an example where they have to select 3 answers. These are all examples of technology-enhanced questions where they may have to move answers onto the number line, or they may have to cut and paste something onto in order to complete the answer. These are some of the field test items that we'll have. Yes?
So in a question like that that asks them to select 3 answers, does it, if they don't select 3 answers, does it warn them before they move to the next question?
We have not been told that it warns them at all. I do know that sometimes when they have the map test, it won't allow them to go on.
Right.
I don't know if it does that for the milestones. We have not been told that it does. But they're used to selecting more than one answer because of map testing, so we just need to remind them to read carefully.
Would it show up as incomplete on that last review page?
No. If they have answered the question, I don't think it'll show up as incomplete, because if they provided one answer. If they haven't answered, then the oval will be blank, and then they can go back and check. Because they assign every year to say that we have done all of this correctly, and so we don't want to let her down. Let's just make sure we follow all directions. These are all the evacuation, restroom and accommodation forms that you may see. Again, what happens if there are network issues? If the system shows a message about connectivity issues, contact your school technology contact. And so you're just going to pass the form in the hall, and either Matt or myself will come and we'll try to do some advanced troubleshooting, but I'm going to give you some of the troubleshooting tips that you can use. The system will allow a student to continue the test after the network issue has been resolved. So again, that if a student is kicked off or they have some sort of connectivity issue, I do have this form, and it just lets us know. It'll be quicker for me to just send an email to the person who can unlock them, and all they need is their name, first and last name, GTID number, and the test that they're on. Okay, and that also helps us to keep a log of who's been kicked off and who wasn't. All right, this is my extension. If you need to call and say, hey, help, you know, there may not be a hall monitor readily available and you just need some assistance. Of course, we will still use walkies. It just, sometimes that disturbs the other classes, but we have many ways to communicate. You're going to have the hall monitors out in the hall. You can use your walkie, and you can call up on the extension, okay? I know I lost a lot of slides with that whole thing, because you guys know how long that thing was. But you do have them so that you can review, and I will send out a refresher on Friday in the Prezi form that you can do real quick like we did, I guess, last year. And yes?
You said people who are doing the small groups, you would let us know when we're gonna meet.
Exactly,
Okay.
yes. Pretty pretty sure this is it. So when you come on the 16th, there will be a hall monitor that will relieve different teachers so that you can come and pick up your materials. You'll get your folder, count out your test tickets, sign for all of the materials that you check out, and then you go about your way. We don't need to do anything. We're just there to have friendly talk and to say good morning and, make sure that you start this test off in a positive way. Then when you come back, we're going to check them in, and we'll the same hall monitors will watch your class for you as you come and you check in your test. We'll count for you real quick and send you on your way. Don't think I have anything else that I need to say. Is there any? We talked about the reading and when they're allowed to read. Yes.
Two things that I think I remember from last year.
Okay.
Did we decide on a process for when the kid was done that you watched them close the test and submit? Does anybody else remember that?
I mentioned that earlier about something that Susan actually does, where she has them to kind of raise their hand and she just lays eyes on them. Several people do that. Good. Yeah, just to kind of lay eyes on them as they click submit. And what else? Okay. It's okay.
That is, the whole thing, did you figure out the thing with the keyboard types and that was a problem last
Yes,
year?
and that is in their resource packet. Make sure that your keyboard is set to US, and you can see it down here, right?
We have to do that before, like, when's the time frame that we need to do that?
Yeah, I mean, when they're in the test, can you change?
Yeah, you can't do it. Like, they have to click out. So yeah,
Before
just
you go into the app, you need to make sure.
just make sure, and they should be in that even as they just carry it around, right?
It gets switched.
Sometimes
Does it?
They may get
They
something.
like to play with it.
Oh,
Yeah, maybe they should fix it in homeroom.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so the sixth graders are leaving their Chromebooks here, correct? Okay, I think they should. They need to bring them in and leave them. Didn't we decide on that, or did we not end up deciding on that?
I don't think we decided. Chambly, I know, the only reason we had even remotely discussed it is because Chambly made kids take theirs in and leave them. But they haven't done that yet. Chambly Middle School hasn't made them turn it in.
No. I'm not speaking of turning in now. I mean,
No, I know what you mean.
yeah, they just.
Chambly hasn't made their kids leave the middle school yet.
Okay, well, I'm just talking about us. Are we gonna make the kids leave their Chrome? Because what if someone?
We don't have 20 places, we don't have 160 floats.
Oh, yeah, because we even talked about
I
the
think
strips too.
the good news
Spending a lot
is
of money.
we have extra Chromebooks. Like
Okay.
60.
Okay.
If they forget to bring them.
And if they
There's
forget to
some in
charge
there.
them.
They can have my cart. They can have our whole cart.
So can we just, I maybe send out an e-blast to parents to remind them to charge their Chromebooks over the weekend or something?
Sixth grade,
Yeah.
the same day as us.
Okay, so they don't need to leave them here, but they do need to make sure that they're charged, and they need to make sure that they bring them back and forth every day. Any other questions, concerns? Yes.
We were looking last year.
I just was not 100% clear on when they're allowed to read, like if they have their own personal book to read.
What we have done in the past, let me see if I can remember, is when the entire class is finished with the test, right? And time has not been called yet. Students are allowed to read, but they have to have been given the minimum amount of time for the test. And no, it's not the entire class. They have to have been given the minimum amount of time for the test, and then they're allowed to read, except on ELA days.
Even now that we're doing one section per day.
I thought it was just the appearance that they may have something that was trying to help them out. I didn't think it had anything to do with more than one section a day, but
Right, because if they've submitted.
if they've submitted and they've had the minimum amount of time, I don't see why they can't read a book.
Not ELA.
Yeah, because it's not paper pencil. However, the district has not given us any guidelines on that. I just know that we as a school used to say not on ELA days, but since we're moving to this new platform where they've already submitted, I don't see how it can hurt.
You just wait until the minimum.
The minimum amount of time has to have passed. We really shouldn't even have to wait for the minimum amount of time if they've already submitted, but we do have to.
So if I'm finished,
In fact, we should, what I think is that we should wait until the minimum amount of time before they are actually allowed to submit.
yeah.
How about that? Because if they decide that they want to go back and they, you know, they want to check something later and they don't have the opportunity to, how's it going to hurt them to have to wait the minimum amount of time?
Won't that make them idle for a long time?
Yeah, that was my opinion. Some of them finish really early.
Do they finish super early? And that was the whole point of not reading too, is because they were finishing super early, so they could read.
My concern about making them wait to submit is that somebody over in the testing department is gonna look at that as some sort of special accommodation, or that you were hinting to them that they should go back and check their work, when you're not supposed to tell them to go back and check their work.
Because of
Like,
the
that's
end
like,
time.
that, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I
They
do.
could really construe that into whatever they wanted if they
I
wanted
do.
us.
Well, let's just emphasize, since we're going to have the screen scrolling and I say it in the morning and you're going to say it, emphasize that they check their work and they take their time. And then they just go ahead and submit when they feel like they're done. Because some of them do finish really quick. I just don't want them to finish and then say, oh, I
But they
didn't have a
can't
chance
read
to.
till everybody's through minimum time.
No, once they submit, they should be fine.
But will
Yes.
it, if they sit there and just kind of mull it over, will it time them out like a milestone?
You ain't mad.
No, it's not a timed anything. That's why the people who have accommodations, they have to keep the time themselves. Yeah. But yeah, if they just go ahead, so let's just be clear. If students finish, they have to be given the minimum amount of time. If they finish and they submit, because some of them will do that, they may read.
You're not concerned they're gonna rush through?
I am very concerned about that. We just finished, yeah, we just talked about that.
They can't read until the 70 minutes is up.
Yeah, I'm super concerned that they're gonna rush.
I would think it would distract
I
them.
would just
I
I
was
would
just
say
saying,
I'll
oh, they're
stick
reading
with
now.
them.
Yeah, I don't want to read. I like it that
They
they're
can
reading
submit
now.
before that, but they're just
They can't
sitting.
read till the 70.
Until the 70 minutes. Are we all agreed on that?
Well, what about day one where they get 90 minutes?
Until the minimum amount of time. It's the minimum amount of time.
So I can read after 70 minutes.
After the
and-
minimum amount of time has
And Pam
passed.
can still be working on increments of 10, and I'm reading my book. And she's,
But it has to be a book.
Yeah, it needs to be a book because no one is going to have a device.
and the book can be, they've got to have it right next to them, they can't get up and get it.
Yeah, the book needs to be under their seat or something like that.
Is nonfiction okay?
Yeah, 'cause they're doing dinner for 40 minutes.
Yeah, we never had any stipulation on it. Yeah, I'm very concerned that they're going to rush. That was the whole point of us saying wait for the minimum amount of time. So they just have to wait. And then after the minimum amount of time, even if they finished in 50 minutes, which I also have a problem with, but they can't read until the minimum amount of time has passed.
Can't you put on your blurb in the mornings, research shows that students who take their time do better.
I'm with you, Mrs. McKinney. I'm done. Thank you very much. Unless you have any